Believe in yourself even in silence. Self-belief. Two words that sound almost trivial when you first hear them, words that get thrown around carelessly like confetti at a celebration, as though saying them once could somehow magically rewire everything that feels broken or uncertain inside you. But if you're listening this right now, you already know better than that shallow interpretation. You know the brutal, unvarnished truth that most people never truly grasp until they're standing alone in the dark, facing their deepest fears and doubts without a single witness to their struggle. Believing in yourself is not some gentle affirmation you whisper in the mirror on a random Tuesday morning. It's an act of psychological warfare, waged relentlessly in the darkest hours of your life, when the applause has completely faded into memory, when the crowd has dispersed and moved on to the next spectacle, when the scoreboard reads an unforgiving 0 and nobody except you seems to care anymore. This is the truth they don't advertise in the glossy motivational posters or the perfectly curated social media posts. Most people don't crumble and collapse because they inherently lack raw talent, natural gifts, or intellectual capacity. They fall apart because their conviction, their sense of self-worth, and their belief in their own potential are all built on sand, on the shifting foundation of external validation, on the temporary high that comes from encouragement, on the dangerously fragile architecture of other people's approval and opinions. They feel absolutely invincible when they are being cheered on by others, unstoppable when someone takes the time to praise their efforts, bulletproof when another person tells them they matter and that their work has value. But the moment you strip away all that noise, all that external reinforcement, watch how quickly the entire foundation cracks and crumbles into dust. The instant that external support vanishes into thin air, their belief evaporates right along with it, leaving them hollow and directionless. This is precisely the critical moment this entire work was created for, to address that specific junction where most people turn back. Because authentic self-belief, the kind that actually sustains you through real difficulty, isn't tested during moments of triumph and celebration. It's tested in the suffocating quiet, in the long stretches of isolation where nobody sees your effort, when you're grinding away at something meaningful in complete solitude, when progress crawls forward at what feels like a glacial pace, when doubt whispers its insidious poison that you're completely wasting your life chasing something that will never materialize, when nobody checks in to see how you're doing, when nobody remembers to ask about your journey, when nobody witnesses the blood, sweat, and tears you're pouring out every single day in pursuit of something that matters to you. Silence, that uncomfortable absence of feedback and recognition, is the ultimate revealer of character. It exposes absolutely everything. It strips away all the comfortable masks we wear and shows whether your belief is genuinely rooted in your own conviction or merely borrowed costume jewelry that you're wearing to impress others. This work isn't here to pump you up with some temporary adrenaline rush that will fade by tomorrow morning. It's not here to deliver some fleeting emotional sugar high that makes you feel good for an afternoon. And it absolutely isn't here to bombard you with recycled motivational slogans that sound profound in the moment, but actually change nothing about your behavior or mindset. This is about something infinitely deeper, infinitely quieter, infinitely more unshakable than any of that superficial noise. This is about mastering the challenging art of self-trust when there are absolutely no witnesses to your struggle, when nobody's watching your efforts, when nobody cares about what you're building. Because eventually, every single person who attempts anything meaningful in this life reaches a critical junction, a fork in the road that will determine their entire trajectory. One path waits endlessly for permission from others, for validation from external sources, for someone else to give you the official green light to pursue what matters to you. The other path moves forward regardless of what anyone else thinks or says, quiet in its determination, relentless in its consistency, completely unapologetic about its direction. That second path, the one less traveled, is constructed from a fundamentally different kind of belief, a belief that doesn't require constant external proof to remain intact, a belief that doesn't shatter into pieces when the cheerleaders finally go home and you're left alone with your thoughts, a belief that can stand completely alone in the dark without needing reassurance from anyone. And if you've ever felt like you're walking this difficult road in complete solitude right now, if that description resonates with something deep in your chest, then what you're about to read matters urgently. If you've ever seriously questioned your own sanity because nobody else seems to see the vision that's crystal clear in your mind yet, if that experience feels familiar and painful, then this matters desperately to you. If you've ever felt crushing pressure to explain yourself to skeptics, to defend your choices to people who haven't earned the right to judge them, or to prove that you're not completely delusional for believing in something that others casually dismiss without understanding it, then this matters profoundly to your journey. Silence doesn't automatically signal that you're wrong about your direction or your dreams. More often than not, it simply means you're ahead of the curve, that you're seeing something others haven't recognized yet, that you're building something before the world is ready to understand its value. The strongest people you genuinely admire, the ones whose resilience and determination inspire you, weren't born with some magical, unshakable confidence that the rest of us lack. They methodically forged that confidence in the furnace of repetition, through relentless discipline that never wavered, through showing up consistently even when every fiber of their being screamed to quit and do something easier, through persisting with unwavering commitment when the entire world looked away and stopped paying attention. Their conviction didn't emerge from standing ovations or viral moments of recognition. It crystallized slowly from keeping sacred promises to themselves, from honoring their own commitments even when nobody else would know if they broke them. That's exactly what this work will help you systematically cultivate within yourself. Over the coming pages, you'll discover practical strategies for how to stop outsourcing your confidence to others and take full ownership of it, how to completely detach your inherent worth from the applause or criticism of people who don't truly understand your journey, how to advance steadily even when doubt screams loudly in your ear that you should turn back, how to construct an unshakable level of self-trust that doesn't fluctuate wildly with external opinions, temporary outcomes, or the presence or absence of recognition from others. This isn't about becoming aggressive, domineering, or arrogant in your interactions with the world. It's about becoming genuinely immovable in your core convictions, about developing a center of gravity that external forces cannot easily shift. It's not about wasting your precious energy trying to convert skeptics who have already made up their minds. It's about committing completely to yourself and your vision, about making an unbreakable pact with your own potential. And most crucially, it's about understanding at a fundamental level that belief isn't something you passively wait around to feel before taking action. It's something you actively practice and cultivate through daily discipline, especially when it feels uncomfortable, isolating, or absolutely terrifying to keep moving forward. If you're genuinely willing to stay engaged with this material, to truly listen with an open mind and heart, to reflect with brutal honesty about where you currently stand, and to actually implement what resonates with you rather than just passively consuming it, this can fundamentally transform how you perceive yourself and your capabilities, not overnight through some miracle cure that doesn't exist, but permanently and sustainably, cell by cell, day by day, choice by choice. Before we go deeper into this journey together, I want you to pause for a moment and visualize someone specific in your world who is silently drowning right now under the weight of their own doubt. Someone who constantly questions their value and worth, someone who feels invisible and unheard, someone who desperately needs fortitude and genuine strength, not just more empty noise and hollow encouragement. Think of that person clearly in your mind. At some point after you've absorbed this material, I'm going to ask you to do one powerfully simple thing that could change someone's trajectory. Share these ideas with that person who needs them. Show them through your action that they are not abandoned in their struggle, that they are not alone in feeling this way. Show them that believing in yourself, even in the most deafening silence imaginable, can alter the entire trajectory of everything they're working toward. Now, let's begin this journey together. Silence has been catastrophically misinterpreted for far too long in our culture. In a world that worships volume, velocity, and relentless visibility above almost everything else, silence gets mistaken for cowardice, for hesitation, for crushing self-doubt and weakness. People automatically assume that if you're not constantly broadcasting your every move, updating everyone on your progress, or defending yourself publicly at every opportunity, you must be paralyzed by uncertainty or afraid of judgment. But this assumption is devastatingly wrong and reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how real strength operates. Silence is not weakness, not even close. More often than not, it's the purest manifestation of genuine power and self-control. Weakness is inherently reactive, always scrambling to respond to every stimulus, desperately needing to justify itself to anyone who questions it, over-explaining compulsively because it's terrified of being misunderstood or forgotten by others. Strength, by stark contrast, doesn't spiral into panic when the room falls completely silent. Strength can comfortably inhabit stillness without feeling the compulsive urge to fill every void with words and explanations. That rare capacity to remain anchored without constant external validation isn't passive submission or weakness. It's a trained discipline that takes time to develop. Most people speak excessively because they are profoundly uncomfortable with silence and what it reveals about them. Silence forces direct confrontation with your own unfiltered thoughts, the ones you usually avoid. It eliminates all the comfortable distractions we habitually use to avoid facing ourselves. It exposes every insecurity that's been lurking just beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. When there's no noise, no external feedback loop, no reassurance blanket to comfort you, you're stranded completely alone with yourself, and there's nowhere to hide from that raw reality. For countless people navigating modern life, that empty space feels genuinely threatening, almost predatory in its intensity. So they talk incessantly to fill it. They overshare intimate details unnecessarily. They broadcast their plans prematurely before they're ready. They justify their decisions to anyone who will listen, even complete strangers. Not because it's necessary for their progress or well-being, but because they're desperately seeking relief from the deep discomfort that silence naturally creates. Silence doesn't offer that easy relief everyone craves. Silence offers something infinitely more valuable if you can learn to embrace it properly: genuine clarity of mind. When you consciously choose silence instead of reactive speech, you're choosing not to react impulsively to every stimulus that comes your way. You're choosing careful observation over knee-jerk impulse. You're choosing self-mastery over emotional hemorrhaging. That single choice alone creates an enormous chasm between those who are constantly controlled by their fluctuating feelings and those who command themselves with consistent discipline. Consider how often silence gets treated like an emergency crisis that must be immediately resolved. In conversations, even natural pauses get frantically filled with meaningless words. In progress toward goals, plateaus get immediately doubted and questioned. In personal growth, invisible effort gets relentlessly questioned and devalued by others. Yet every meaningful transformation in human history has occurred quietly first, long before anyone else noticed or celebrated it. Foundations get laid underground, completely invisible to the watching world. Muscles don't actually grow during the lift itself. They grow during the rest and recovery periods between sessions. Real confidence forms long before it becomes visible to others who are watching from the outside. Silence is precisely where the most important preparation happens, where the real foundational work gets done when nobody's keeping score or paying attention. People who truly understand this principle don't scramble to prove themselves prematurely before they're ready. They don't feel compelled to narrate every single move they make. They don't waste precious energy debating every critic who questions their choices. They allow time and unwavering consistency to speak for them, not because they're hiding or afraid of judgment, but because they understand when saying nothing carries more actual power than saying everything you're thinking. Silence protects your precious energy reserves from unnecessary depletion. Every explanation you give away costs you something valuable. Every defense you mount drains your focus and attention away from what actually matters. When you're constantly responding to external noise and criticism, you're essentially handing other people control over your internal state and emotional well-being. Silence deliberately reclaims that control. It establishes a clear boundary between what actually matters to your journey and what absolutely doesn't deserve your attention or energy. This becomes especially critical when you're building something meaningful from scratch. Early stages are inherently fragile and vulnerable. Ideas are still incomplete and developing. Confidence is still crystallizing and hasn't solidified yet. Speaking too much too soon exposes you to doubt and criticism before you're fortified enough to withstand it without being derailed. Silence creates protected space to grow without constant interference from external voices. This doesn't mean complete isolation or withdrawal from all human connection. It means intentionality in what you share and when you share it. There's a monumental difference between being silent because you're terrified of judgment and being silent because you're disciplined in your approach. Fear-based silence diminishes you and keeps you small. Disciplined silence strengthens you and allows you to grow. One hides from the world, the other holds steady in the face of it. Disciplined silence allows you to study people carefully and understand their true motivations. You begin noticing who speaks from deep insecurity and who speaks from genuine conviction. You notice who craves validation from others to function and who doesn't need it. Over time, this awareness sharpens your judgment dramatically about who deserves your trust and attention. You become less reactive to every opinion thrown at you, less emotionally volatile in your responses, and more calculated in how you choose to operate. Silence also builds credibility that words alone cannot create. People who talk constantly dilute their words into complete meaninglessness. When everything is broadcast publicly, nothing actually registers as important or worthy of attention. When you speak less frequently and more intentionally, your words naturally carry more weight. They land with real impact. They are remembered and considered seriously, not because they're louder in volume, but because they're rare and therefore valuable. This is why genuine leaders don't rush to respond to every provocation. This is why truly confident individuals don't feel compelled to announce every single step of their journey. This is why those with real self-belief are perfectly comfortable being underestimated temporarily by others. They understand something most people never fully grasp. Silence is not empty space waiting to be filled. It's actually full of restraint, patience, and iron self-control that most people cannot muster. If you constantly feel the magnetic urge to explain yourself to others, stop for a moment and examine that impulse carefully. Ask yourself honestly why you feel that persistent need. Is it truly to clarify something important or simply to seek approval and validation? Is it to genuinely communicate something necessary or just to be validated by others? Silence will reveal that answer clearly if you give it permission to speak. Practicing silence is brutally uncomfortable at first. There's no denying that reality. You'll feel the powerful magnetic pull to speak up, to correct misunderstandings, to defend your position, to justify your choices to skeptics. That discomfort you feel isn't evidence that silence is somehow wrong for you. It's actually evidence that you're breaking an old, deeply toxic habit that has served you poorly, the habit of constantly needing external reassurance to feel okay about yourself. Start small with this practice. Resist explaining your decisions when they genuinely don't require explanation to function. Let natural pauses breathe in conversations instead of rushing to fill them with nervous words. Stop responding instantly to every message that arrives in your inbox. Notice carefully how much calmer your mind becomes when you stop reacting to every stimulus swirling around you. In that hard-earned calm, something fundamental begins to shift inside you. You begin trusting yourself more profoundly and consistently. Not because others are actively validating you, but because you no longer depend on their validation to know your own worth. Your confidence stops being performative theater and starts being solid as bedrock. Silence teaches you genuine patience. It teaches you proper timing. It teaches you that not every thought that crosses your mind deserves expression, and not every challenge requires public confrontation. Some battles are actually won by strategic waiting. Some progress is made by staying quiet and continuing regardless of what others say. This is the kind of strength that doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't demand acknowledgement from others. It doesn't rush forward impatiently. It endures through time. Silence is not weakness. It never has been. It is composure under pressure. It is genuine self-respect. It is belief that doesn't need to perform for an audience to exist. And when your belief no longer needs to be heard by others to feel real, you stop being controlled by the noise constantly surrounding you. You become harder to shake emotionally, harder to distract from your purpose, harder to break under pressure. That is where authentic self-belief actually begins to take root and grow stronger. One of the most dangerous misconceptions about self-belief is the mistaken idea that it originates with feeling confident first. People assume that once they magically feel confident enough inside, they'll finally take meaningful action toward their goals. But reality works in complete reverse of this common assumption. Confidence rarely appears first in the sequence. Action does, and real belief is something that slowly crystallizes as a direct result of what you repeatedly do, not what you repeatedly declare to yourself or others. That's why self-belief must be built through consistent action, not simply announced with words. When someone constantly talks about believing in themselves without backing it up with corresponding behavior, it often signals the exact opposite of what they claim. It suggests they're still desperately trying to convince themselves of something they don't yet truly feel deep inside. Authentic belief doesn't need to be vocalized repeatedly to exist or prove itself. It manifests quietly in consistent behavior, in unwavering discipline, and in reliable consistency over time. It reveals itself through actual follow-through on commitments, not through loud declarations of intent that never materialize. Words are remarkably cheap and easy to produce. Meaningful action is expensive and difficult to sustain over long periods. Announcing your intentions feels good in the moment because it creates a compelling illusion of momentum and progress. When you tell others what you plan to do, your brain releases a small reward, as if the actual work has already begun, as if you've already accomplished something significant. But that premature reward is dangerous to your actual progress. It reduces the psychological urgency to act. It weakens your commitment to follow through, and over time, it creates a growing gap between who you claim to be and what you actually do with your time and energy. That expanding gap is precisely where self-doubt breeds and multiplies exponentially. True belief cannot survive in that gap between words and actions. Self-belief strengthens most powerfully when your actions and your identity align perfectly with each other. When you say you'll do something and then actually do it, especially when it's uncomfortable or challenging, your mind takes careful note. It records evidence. Each small act of follow-through becomes undeniable proof that you are reliable, not to others, but to yourself. This proof matters infinitely more than motivation ever will. Motivation is inherently emotional. It rises and crashes unpredictably. Belief is structural. It's built slowly, brick by painstaking brick, through repetition. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, you reinforce the fundamental idea that you can be trusted. And when you trust yourself deeply, confidence becomes stable instead of fragile. That stability is what most people are desperately missing. Many people chase belief through external validation. They hunt for encouragement, praise, or recognition from others to feel capable. But external validation is temporary by nature. It evaporates quickly, and when it disappears, belief collapses right along with it. This creates a vicious cycle of dependence, where confidence exists only when someone else is watching and approving. Quiet work shatters that destructive cycle. When you work without announcing it, there's no performance pressure. No need to impress anyone. No expectation to explain slow progress. You're free to struggle, adjust, and improve privately. This freedom allows belief to develop naturally without interference. Private effort builds public strength. Another reason announcing belief prematurely is dangerous. It exposes unfinished identity to scrutiny. When you speak before you have solid evidence, you create internal tension. Your mind knows the truth. It knows whether your actions match your words, and when they don't align, self-trust erodes. Over time, you begin doubting not just your goals, but your fundamental ability to follow through at all. Silence protects you from that erosion. In silence, you're accountable only to yourself. There's nowhere to hide from your own standards. But there's also no audience to impress or perform for. This environment is uncomfortable, but it's honest. And honesty is required for real belief to grow. Think about how belief actually forms in practice. It doesn't arrive all at once in some magical moment of clarity. It accumulates. It develops gradually after repeated exposure to difficulty. After you've shown up on days when you didn't feel ready, after you've continued despite suffocating uncertainty, after you've proven through consistent behavior that discomfort doesn't stop you. This kind of belief cannot be faked or manufactured. It also cannot be rushed. People who try to short-cut belief by talking more usually end up talking themselves into exhaustion. They spend more energy maintaining an image than building actual ability. Meanwhile, those who stay quiet focus all their energy on execution. Over time, the difference becomes glaringly obvious to everyone. One has stories, the other has results. This is why comparison is so toxic to self-belief. When you compare your quiet process to someone else's visible success, you feel behind. But you're comparing two completely different stages. You're looking at someone's finished product while you're still in construction. Belief weakens when you measure yourself by timelines that aren't yours. The solution is to narrow your attention dramatically. Reduce exposure to noise. Focus exclusively on what you can control: effort, consistency, and direction. Belief grows fastest when attention is disciplined. There will be moments when belief feels completely absent. Days when doubt screams louder than confidence. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're in the middle of building something real. Belief is often weakest just before it becomes solid, because the work is demanding and the results aren't visible yet. This is where silence becomes essential again. Instead of explaining your struggle to others, you endure it. Instead of seeking reassurance, you keep moving. Instead of announcing progress, you let it accumulate quietly. Every time you choose action over expression, belief strengthens. Eventually, something profound shifts. You stop needing to tell people what you're capable of. You stop waiting for encouragement. You stop questioning every step. Not because doubt has disappeared entirely, but because your belief now has history behind it. It has evidence. It has weight. At that point, words become optional, because the strongest belief is not the one you announce loudly. It's the one you live quietly and consistently. There comes a moment in every meaningful journey when belief becomes excruciatingly lonely. Not dramatic, not obvious, just quiet and crushing. It's the moment when encouragement evaporates, when questions multiply, and silence replaces support. This is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're entering a phase most people never reach because they turn back too soon. When no one believes in you, something profound is being tested. Can you still move forward without permission or approval? Most people cannot. Their belief is conditional. It depends on agreement, on reassurance, on visible support from others. When those things vanish, momentum dies. They interpret silence as rejection and doubt as a warning. They turn back, not because they lack ability, but because they lack sufficient self-trust. This work exists for that exact moment. Because belief is not meant to be crowdsourced. It's not meant to be voted on. And it's not meant to wait until it feels safe. Real belief begins where approval ends. At some point, every individual must decide whether their direction is determined internally or externally. If it's external, progress will always be fragile. You'll move only when encouraged. You'll hesitate when questioned. You'll stop when misunderstood. That's not belief, that's dependency. When no one believes, the pressure intensifies exponentially. Doubt becomes deafening, not just from others, but from within yourself. You begin questioning your judgment. You replay conversations obsessively. You wonder if you missed something obvious that everyone else can see. This internal noise feels convincing because it's familiar. Humans are wired to seek alignment with the group. Isolation feels dangerous, even when it's necessary. But growth has never been a group activity. Every breakthrough idea, every personal transformation, every meaningful change begins with someone standing alone longer than they were comfortable. The belief that carried them through was not confirmed by others. It was self-generated and self-maintained. This is where most people give up too early. They mistake lack of belief from others as evidence that they're wrong. But silence from others often means one simple thing: they cannot see what you see yet, and sometimes they never will. Belief is not a reaction to consensus. It is a commitment to direction. You are not required to convince anyone at the beginning. In fact, trying to convince others too early weakens your position. When you explain before there is evidence, you invite doubt before you're equipped to handle it. When you seek validation before progress, you expose belief before it's fully formed. Silence protects belief during this fragile stage. Believing when no one else does requires extraordinary emotional restraint. It means allowing others to doubt without absorbing their uncertainty. It means listening without reacting, observing without defending, continuing without announcing. This is not arrogance. It is discipline. There is a monumental difference between blind belief and earned belief. Blind belief ignores reality. Earned belief acknowledges difficulty and moves forward anyway. It accepts uncertainty without surrendering direction. It understands that clarity often comes after commitment, not before. Most people wait for confidence before acting. But confidence rarely appears on its own. It is a response to survival, to persistence, to proof created through action. When you act without support, you generate internal evidence. Each step forward becomes a reason to trust yourself more. This is how belief deepens. It is important to understand that being doubted does not make you special. Enduring doubt does. Many people are doubted, few continue. The difference lies in how doubt is interpreted. Some see it as a stop sign, others see it as background noise. You must learn to treat doubt as information, not instruction. Doubt will always exist. Even when you succeed, it will change form. Waiting for doubt to disappear is a losing strategy. The goal is not to eliminate doubt, but to stop obeying it. You do this by acting anyway, by proving through behavior that uncertainty does not control you. When no one believes in you, progress becomes quieter, slower, less celebrated. That environment feels uncomfortable because it removes emotional reinforcement. But it also removes distraction. There is nothing to perform, nothing to prove publicly, only work to be done. This is where belief becomes internal instead of performative. It is also where self-respect respect is forged. Every time you continue without applause, you strengthen the relationship with yourself. You learn that your commitment is not dependent on recognition. That lesson changes how you move through the world. You stop chasing approval. You stop explaining delays. You stop adjusting your direction based on opinions that are not invested in the outcome. You become selective with your energy. And that selectiveness sharpens focus. Belief that survives isolation becomes durable. There will be moments when loneliness feels crushing. When you wish someone understood. When you wish someone reassured you that you're not wasting your time. Those moments are real. They should not be ignored. But they should not be allowed to decide for you. Loneliness is a feeling. Direction is a decision. You do not need to feel strong to continue. You need to be willing. Willing to show up without certainty. Willing to proceed without validation. Willing to trust that effort accumulates even when no one is watching. Over time, something subtle but powerful happens. Your belief stops asking for confirmation. It becomes quieter, calmer, and more stable. You no longer need others to believe in you because you already do, and that belief is supported by experience. That is when external doubt loses its grip, because belief that is tested in isolation is not easily shaken. It has survived without witnesses. It moved without applause. It has endured without permission. And when belief reaches that stage, it no longer needs agreement to exist. When no one believes in you, you must, not loudly, not defensively, but consistently. That consistency is what turns belief into something real. One of the quiet habits that destroys self-belief is the need for permission. Permission to start. Permission to change direction. Permission to take yourself seriously. Many people never realize they're waiting for it, but their behavior reveals the truth. They hesitate endlessly. They over-explain compulsively. They ask for opinions they don't actually need. And underneath all of it is the same question: is this allowed? The problem is simple and brutal. Permission rarely arrives. No one wakes up one day and officially authorizes you to trust yourself. No announcement is made. No approval letter is sent. If you wait for permission before you move, you will spend most of your life frozen in place. Looking for permission is often disguised as being responsible, polite, or thoughtful. But in reality, it is a form of self-doubt. It shifts authority away from your own judgment and places it in the hands of others. When you do that long enough, you stop seeing yourself as the decision maker in your own life, and belief cannot grow where authority is outsourced. Every time you ask for unnecessary validation, you weaken the signal you send to yourself. You tell your mind that your instincts are unreliable, that your judgment needs external confirmation. Over time, this creates hesitation even in simple decisions. You second-guess choices that should be automatic. You feel uncertain even when you know what you want. This is how confidence erodes quietly. The truth is uncomfortable. Most people you seek permission from are not more qualified than you. They are simply more visible, louder, or more confident in expressing opinions. But confidence in speaking does not equal clarity in thinking. And visibility does not equal wisdom. When you hand over your decisions to others, you also hand over responsibility. If things go wrong, you can blame the advice. If things go right, you still don't fully own the result. Either way, belief weakens because you were never fully committed to your own choice. Self-belief requires ownership. Stopping the search for permission does not mean becoming reckless or arrogant. It means recognizing the difference between guidance and approval. Guidance informs, approval controls. One supports your growth, the other delays it. You're allowed to learn from others without surrendering your direction. Many people confuse hesitation with thoughtfulness. They believe that waiting longer will bring clarity. But clarity does not come from waiting. It comes from engaging, from choosing, from experiencing the consequences of your decisions and adjusting accordingly. Belief is strengthened by decision making, not by indecision. When you make a choice and stand by it, even imperfectly, you build trust with yourself. You prove that you can handle outcomes, that you can correct mistakes, that you don't collapse the moment something goes wrong. This proof matters more than being right every time. Looking for permission often comes from fear of judgment, fear of being wrong, fear of being criticized, fear of standing out. But avoiding judgment comes at a cost. It costs momentum, it costs clarity, and over time, it costs identity. You begin living according to expectations instead of convictions. There is a quiet strength in deciding without explaining, in moving forward without consensus, in accepting that not everyone will understand or agree. That strength is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It simply acts. People who believe in themselves do not wait to be chosen. They choose themselves first, not because they believe they are superior, but because they understand that no one else can live their life for them. Permission-seeking delays action, and delayed action creates doubt. The longer you wait, the more your mind invents reasons not to move. The risks feel larger, the stakes feel higher, confidence shrinks as time passes. This is why small decisions matter. Acting quickly on small things trains decisiveness, and decisiveness builds belief. You don't need permission to take the next step. You need courage to accept responsibility for it. That responsibility is what most people are avoiding. It is easier to say, "They told me to," than "I chose this." But belief only grows in the second statement. When you own your choices, you also own your progress. There will be moments when you choose wrong. That is unavoidable. But mistakes made through your own judgment teach faster than correct decisions made through someone else's approval. Failure handled personally builds resilience. Success earned independently builds confidence. Both strengthen belief. Start noticing where you ask for permission unnecessarily. Before sending that message, before seeking that opinion, before explaining that choice, pause. Ask yourself whether this input is required or simply comforting. Often, it is the latter. Learn to tolerate the discomfort of deciding alone. That discomfort is temporary. The confidence it builds is lasting. As you stop looking for permission, something changes internally. Your decisions feel heavier but clearer. You move slower at first, but with more intention. You begin to trust your judgment, not because it is flawless, but because it is yours. This is how authority returns to where it belongs. You stop negotiating with doubt. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not invested. You stop waiting for signals that may never come, and in that space, belief has room to grow. True self-belief does not need approval to exist. It needs commitment, it needs responsibility, and it needs action taken without guarantees. The moment you stop looking for permission is the moment you begin acting from conviction instead of caution. And conviction practiced consistently is one of the strongest foundations belief can have. Doubt is not the enemy most people think it is. In fact, doubt is one of the most natural human experiences. Every person who has ever attempted something meaningful has felt it. Doubt appears when you step into uncertainty, when outcomes are unclear, and when comfort is no longer guaranteed. It does not mean you are weak. It means you are aware. The real problem is not doubt itself. The real problem is obedience to it. Most people are not stopped by fear or uncertainty. They are stopped by the habit of listening to those feelings as if they were commands. When doubt speaks, they pause. When hesitation appears, they retreat. Over time, this pattern trains the mind to associate uncertainty with danger. And belief slowly erodes. But doubt was never meant to lead. It was meant to be observed. Doubt is information, not a command. It signals risk, effort, or unfamiliarity. That information can be useful. It can help you prepare. It can help you think clearly. But the moment doubt becomes the decision maker, progress ends. Belief cannot exist where every action requires emotional permission. Strong individuals understand this distinction. They do not wait for doubt to disappear before moving. They move with doubt present. They act while uncertain. They proceed without emotional certainty because they understand that certainty is often the result of action, not the cause of it. Obedience to doubt creates stagnation. When you repeatedly stop yourself because you do not feel ready, you send a powerful message to your mind. Discomfort equals danger. Over time, the threshold for action increases. What once felt challenging now feels impossible, and belief weakens, not because you failed, but because you never tested yourself. Avoidance feels safe in the short term. In the long term, it creates regret. Every time you obey doubt, you reinforce its authority. You teach yourself that hesitation should be trusted more than intention, that fear deserves more attention than commitment. Slowly, doubt becomes louder, not because it is right, but because it has been obeyed repeatedly. This is how people become trapped in overthinking. They analyze endlessly, they prepare excessively, they wait for the perfect moment, but perfection never arrives. And belief fades while waiting, not dramatically, but quietly, one delayed decision at a time. It is important to understand that doubt does not disappear with success. Even experienced individuals feel it. Even confident people question themselves. The difference is not emotional. It is behavioral. Confident people feel doubt and act anyway. Insecure people feel doubt and stop. Belief is shaped by which response you choose. When you act despite doubt, something changes internally. You discover that discomfort is survivable, that uncertainty does not destroy you, that action is possible without clarity. Each time this happens, doubt loses power, not because it is gone, but because it is no longer obeyed. This is how belief becomes resilient. Many people believe they must first eliminate doubt to move forward. That belief keeps them stuck. Doubt is part of growth. It signals that you are stretching beyond what is familiar. If doubt is absent, growth is likely absent as well. The goal is not to feel fearless. The goal is to act without needing fear to disappear. Think about how belief is built in real life, not through comfort, but through exposure. Each time you face uncertainty and survive it, your tolerance increases. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What once caused hesitation becomes routine. Belief grows quietly through this repeated exposure. Obedience to doubt prevents this process. Another mistake people make is treating doubt as a personal flaw. They judge themselves for feeling unsure. This judgment adds a second layer of resistance. Now they are not only uncertain, but ashamed of it. This emotional weight makes action even harder. Doubt does not need to be fixed. It needs to be placed in its proper role. You can acknowledge doubt without negotiating with it. You can hear its concerns without following its commands. You can let it exist without allowing it to dictate your behavior. This separation is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. Start noticing how often doubt appears before action, before starting, before committing, before speaking up. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this feeling?" ask, "What is the next action anyway?" This shift changes everything. Action interrupts doubt's authority. Small actions are especially powerful. They prove that movement is possible even when confidence is low. You do not need a dramatic leap. You need a step. One step taken despite doubt weakens its control. Repeated steps dismantle it entirely. Over time, doubt becomes background noise, present but irrelevant. This does not mean recklessness. It means responsibility. You still think, you still assess, but you do not allow feelings to override decisions. You understand that emotions fluctuate, while direction requires consistency. Belief strengthens when actions align with values, not moods. When you stop obeying doubt, you reclaim control. You become the one deciding when to move, not the feeling in the moment. This shift is subtle but powerful. It transforms belief from something fragile into something durable. You begin to trust yourself not because you always feel confident, but because you have evidence that you can act without it. That trust changes how you see challenges. They become tasks, not threats. Doubt will still show up. It always does, but it will no longer sit in the driver's seat. And when doubt is no longer in control, belief finally has space to grow stronger than ever before. Confidence is often misunderstood as a feeling. People imagine it as a surge of certainty, a bold mindset that appears before action. But real confidence does not arrive first. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. True confidence is the byproduct of quiet work done consistently, long before anyone notices. Loud confidence is usually borrowed. It comes from praise, attention, or short-term success, and because it is borrowed, it is unstable. The moment recognition fades or results slow down, that confidence disappears. What remains is uncertainty, because nothing solid was built underneath. Quiet work is different. Quiet work happens when there is no audience, when there are no likes, no encouragement, no visible progress. It is the work you do when no one is watching and no one is keeping score. This kind of work does not feel impressive in the moment. In fact, it often feels repetitive and invisible, but it is precisely this repetition that builds real confidence. Confidence grows when your actions become reliable. Every time you show up without being seen, you reinforce a simple truth: you can be trusted, not by others, but by yourself. This self-trust is the foundation of unshakable confidence. It is not emotional. It is earned. Most people want the feeling of confidence before they have done the work to deserve it. They want assurance without evidence. Quiet work reverses that order. It provides evidence first. Feeling follows later. This is why people who work quietly often appear suddenly confident to others. From the outside, it looks like confidence appeared overnight. But what others did not see were the weeks, months, or years of silent effort that made that confidence inevitable. Quiet work removes performance pressure. When no one is watching, you are free to fail privately. You can adjust without embarrassment. You can struggle without explanation. This freedom allows honest progress. It allows you to focus on improvement instead of image. And improvement is what confidence responds to. Confidence does not come from pretending to be capable. It comes from repeatedly proving to yourself that you can handle difficulty. There is also a psychological shift that happens during quiet work. When you stop seeking external feedback, your attention turns inward. You begin to evaluate yourself based on effort and consistency instead of reactions. This internal standard strengthens belief because it is within your control. External validation is unpredictable. Internal standards are stable. Quiet work also builds tolerance. Tolerance for boredom, for discomfort, for delayed gratification. These tolerances are essential for confidence, because confidence is not just belief in success. It is belief in your ability to endure the process. Many people quit not because they cannot succeed, but because they cannot tolerate the quiet phase. The phase where nothing seems to be happening. The phase where effort feels wasted. The phase where doubt whispers that this is pointless. Quiet work teaches you to keep going anyway, and that persistence changes you fundamentally. When you repeatedly act without reward, you stop relying on motivation. You develop discipline. Discipline does not ask how you feel. It acts based on commitment. Over time, discipline becomes identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. That identity is confidence. Quiet work also exposes truth. When no one is watching, excuses become obvious. There is no one to impress, no one to blame, no one to deceive. You either do the work or you don't. This honesty strengthens self-respect, and self-respect respect is a key ingredient of confidence. You do not need to feel confident to work quietly. In fact, quiet work often begins in uncertainty. The confidence comes later, once enough evidence accumulates. This is why waiting to feel ready is a mistake. Readiness is built through action, not before it. People who understand this stop chasing confidence as a feeling. They chase consistency instead. Another benefit of quiet work is resilience. When your confidence is built privately, it does not depend on outcomes. Success does not inflate you. Failure does not destroy you. You have already proven to yourself that you can show up regardless of result. That knowledge creates emotional stability. Loud confidence reacts. Quiet confidence remains. This kind of confidence does not need to dominate conversations or seek attention. It is calm. It listens more than it speaks. It is comfortable being underestimated because it knows what it has built. It does not rush to prove anything. Quiet work also sharpens focus. When you're not distracted by recognition, you can direct all your energy toward progress. You make better decisions, you improve faster, and improvement compounds. Over time, the results of quiet work become visible. When they do, confidence appears loud to others, but it is not new. It is simply being noticed for the first time. And by then, it no longer needs approval. This is the confidence that lasts. If you want to build this kind of confidence, simplify your approach. Choose one thing to improve. Work on it consistently. Do not announce it. Do not track external reactions. Measure progress by effort and learning. Let time do the rest.